Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to the house of David, which is the elect. And just want to come back through the Spirit with the news and prophecy, update, right? We are on the cusp of, potential war, right? As we're seeing, these things being built up, and we know that it's all pertaining to prophecy. So, we're not, taken back or surprised, right? As the scripture says that we are to measure the times diligently, right? And as we measure the times, the Lord gave us these signs to, watch out for. And, it's our reasonable service, to disseminate, what is being seen through the Spirit to the hopeful elect, right? So that you can be, fed with the wisdom and knowledge and understanding so that you can be stable in these unstable times, right? Because, everybody is, on the edge of their seat when it comes, to this war, right? That is, brewing up, right? Really, it's right there, right? With America and Iran, which, really America is being, pushed to this position by the 48ers, right? Which is once again prophecy, right? As it says in the book of Jeremiah, the 49th chapter, that the least of the flock shall draw them out. So what you have happening is, the last talks that happened yesterday, being Thursday, basically the Iranians said that the talks went well and progress was made. And then you had, the U.S. side basically came out and said that, they're not happy with what's going on. So it's conflicting, right, messages being given. And you also see how, right, the Trump administration and the negotiators on that side, they keep pushing back the goalpost, right, changing up their quote unquote demands that they want the Iranians to, acquiesce to. And it's really, it has nothing really to do with them trying to come to some sort of deal. Because when you look at what they're doing, right, the amount of military, assets that they're putting over there is showing that they are getting ready to engage in a, full blown out war. OK, and, we, hope, right, and pray that this is, going to, escalate and elevate and spill over into what will be known as the war of Armageddon, right? The war that will end, right, this age. But as you see on the screen, which is, speaking to that sentiment, you had the former defense minister of the 48ers say the coming weeks will shape the coming decades in the Middle East. All right. So the fact that he is saying this, right, and they're speaking from a prideful standpoint, right? They're speaking from a standpoint where they think that their houses are going to continue forever, right? As it says in the book of Obadiah, that their the pride of their heart has deceived them, right? Obadiah chapter 1, verse 2, it says, "Behold, I have made thee small against Salakia. I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised," right? And when you go into that word despised in the Hebrew, right, it says, which is baza, right? Baza. It says to despise, to hold in contempt, to disdain, to be despicable, to be vile, to be worthless, right? And Esau, Edom, and starting chiefly with Amalek, right? That is exactly what's happening, all right? Within their own kingdom, within their own system, right? Amalek, right, which are the the state of the 48ers, right? Those that call themselves the JOOs, they are becoming despised, right? And even amongst the house of Esau, Amalek, right, is being despised. All right, and it has to, a lot of it has to do with, this war, right? A lot of American, red-blooded Americans are upset that America is being dragged or drawn out into this war because of, 48ers, which I have a video, right, where you have this one woman speaking about that. All right, and on top of that, the billions of dollars that, the tax-paying Americans is giving unto them. All right, and the things that are coming out with the Epstein, right? A lot of dirt is being brought forth, right? Showcasing, which is just all biblical prophecy, right? As the scripture says, that the Lord was going to, put a shameful spewing upon Esau's glory. Okay, and also in the book of Nahum, was that chapter? Was that 2? Might be 3. Nahum chapter 3, verse 4. It says, so like in verse 5, it says, "Behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts." All right, and this is, historically speaking about Nineveh, but we know that America is likened unto Nineveh in the scriptures, right? In ancient Assyria, which Nineveh was the capital of. It says, "Behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will discover thy skirt upon thy face," which means what? He was going to reveal, right, its true nature, right? Reveal the secret parts of, Esau. "And I will show the nations thy nakedness and the kingdoms thy shame." Okay, and we see in this is taking place with, like I said before, the whole things with the Epstein files and, the powers that be, how they are being exposed left and right. Right, you have all of these CEOs having to, step down because of their dealings, right, with Epstein, and knowing what that stigma, right, really means. Or you just had the Clintons had to give a deposition in front of a House committee. Okay, people that were once upon a time, revered as nobles of, Babylon, right, nobles of America, now are being, grilled for their, association, right, and they're going to, they're going to lie, right, and they're going to try to continue to put on this front as if they are not, involved in any type of illegal activities or soliciting, minors and all these things, but nobody's believing it because, once again, the Lord has showed the nations their nakedness. So when these nations now speak about, because even the Ayatollah of Iran, right, he made mention of, the things that were happening, with Epstein, and he said, this is what the West is about, right? This is, for 200 to 300 years, they have been ruling, but this is how they rule. This is their diplomacy. This is their so-called, freedom, right? Which is really freedom to be evil, right? To do as thou wilt. It says, I will cast abominable filth upon thee. See? And they were already filthy, right? And make thee vile. And they were already vile. And I will set thee as a gazing stock. So when the Lord says that he will cast the abominable filth upon thee and make thee vile, it's really showing, the Lord is saying, I'm going to show, right, how vile and how abominable you really are, because you try to perpetrate with this clean cut persona, right? This, oh, I'm innocent. I'm upright and noble, but really who you really are behind closed doors are what you are really dealing with underneath, that clothing, right? That skirt is really nothing more than just the basis of man. And that is what has been presented. And because of that, Esau is at his wit's end, right? As the scripture says, there is no more wisdom in Teman. So what does he do, right? As the saying goes, when all else fail, they take you to war. See? And on top of that, the thick clay, the debt that they're in, right? The fact that, the American economy is, on its last leg. Esau, his whole kingdom is really, we're truly witnessing the end of this devil's rulership. And this is why he's trying to bully nations into capitulating to what he wants by way of the force of the sword. But see, the Lord has, as it says, right, he has gathered these nations. His determination was to gather these nations. So these nations that they once were able to just bully and take over and, make force, right, to do what they want. As it says in Joel, the 3rd chapter, these weak nations are now saying that they're strong. So they're no longer afraid to fight against Esau, to fight, and to go to war against Babylon. You see? Now, not to say that Babylon isn't still a strong nation, right? But these nations, have means to inflict damage on them as well. Okay, so when you go back to that, post where that guy said, where is it at? Right here, the coming weeks will shape the coming decades in the Middle East, right? This is foreshadowing, okay, of and they're thinking about this being on something that's going to be beneficial for them. But going back to Obadiah, right? The pride of thine heart has deceived thee. So they are deceived, thinking that they are going to be the victors. You see, and this is, when you have the truth, which we always, give thanks and are grateful that the Lord has opened our eyes. We're not looking at this from a low level, blinded, ignorant Babylonian American standpoint, where you look at America like, okay, yeah, we're still safe. We may not agree with what they're doing, but we still believe that America is able to, protect and defend and defeat anybody. Okay. And I remember back when 9/11 happened and I was young, I wasn't, didn't even know what the truth was. Right. I remember having that thought that, oh, well, if we go to war, then America will definitely be able to beat, Iraq, right, or Afghanistan, whoever they was fighting. Okay. And I felt like I didn't have to really be worried, you see. And that's how this place is Babylon the Great, because that mindset, which starts from the ruler, right, and the way that they put that on the people, goes into Isaiah the 47th chapter, where it speaks about that thou that dwellest carelessly, right? Also in Revelation, the 18th chapter, speaking about Babylon, right? The mindset here is to dwell carelessly, but yet they're doing things that is leading into a position that they're going to, not be able to escape from. You see? And it's not just, America against Iran, because that's why people feel like they're dwelling carelessly, because they just think it's just going to just stop at just Iran. When you are in the sanctuary of the Lord and you understand, prophecy, you understand that this is a major stepping stone onto Russia, right? The chief prince of Meshach, all right? Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, coming to fruition. And as we always speak about prophecy is a process of events. So when you see, the combating and the back and forth and Trump talking about, they want to, they're speaking about doing deals and trying to come to some agreement, but it's not happening, right? That is because as the scriptures speaks about, the Lord works on the minds of the kings. He has this devil in this trick bag. The deceive and the deceiver are his. So Esau, as it says, the pride of thine heart has deceived thee, right? Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, and saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Okay, and when you listen to the verbiage, I got a couple videos, but when you listen to these people speak, they actually think that they're unbeatable, right? They think that they're not, if they go to war, then nobody can, match them. And when you go to Revelation, I'm gonna play that video real quick. But when you go to Revelation, right, that was a sentiment, right, that was in the earth during the first beast with the Roman Empire. But guess what? The Roman Empire fell, right? Revelation 13, verse 4, it says, I'll start at 3. It says, and I saw one of the heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all of the world wondered after the beast. Now, this is, speaking about the first beast, the Roman Empire. And as it, was crippled, right? And for a time period, it was, they had no power in the earth, which would be known as, the Dark Ages, right? But then it was as it was wounded to death and his deadly wound was healed, meaning what? It was revived, which is known as the Renaissance period. Okay. And at that point, it says all the world wondered after the beast. So America eventually, came into power, right, after defeating the French and the British and the Spanish, right, which that was also, prophecy. Okay. It got to a point where all nations were basically subjected unto America and its conglomerate, which is known as NATO. And they looked at it as if it was, something that the world needed to, be submissive and subjected unto. Let me go into this word wondered. I don't know if I went into this word, see what it means. Wondered, it says what? To wonder, to marvel, to have in admiration. Yeah. See? And that was, just the Western culture altogether. Right. And you still hear how, Americans, boast in Western civilization, right? Which is nothing but, folly and stupidity, right? And wickedness. But they packaged it to make it look appealing, right? To make it look successful and make it look, something to admire. But what does it really produce? It produces confusion and death, right? Depression. That's why you have over, in America, you have, obesity, depression, right? Cancer, all these things that are all time high, high blood pressure, right? Happiness is at an all time low here. See, but that's the deception of this devil, right? That's the deception that this serpent grew into as being this beast, is to be able to make death appealing. Verse 4, it says, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? And who can make war with him? See, who can make war with him? All right. And this is why something is known as, back in the ancient world, during the Roman times, it was called Pax Romana. But you, with the second beast, you had something known as Pax Americana, which means what? The peace, right? The age of peace. Pax Americana, meaning, right, through America's dominance. It says a state of relative international peace regarded as overseen by the U.S. or the U.K., which the seventh, right, the eighth, which is America, came out of the seventh, right, talking about the 10 horns in Revelation 17th chapter, which they, basically represent the Western civilization, right, Western culture. Okay. And now you have these devils harping on peace through strength. And they're saying that because they're seeing that their kingdom is corroded, right? They're seeing that it's wounded. Jeremiah, the 51st chapter, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. So the way that they're trying to heal it is by the force of the sword, right? Is by, using its blessing, which is a sword, taking peace from the earth, but trying to bring peace to themselves. Because in Esau's mind, peace is when they're on top and everybody is subjected unto their rule, into their laws, into their way of living, and nobody can do anything to fight against it. That is what they consider peace on the earth, international peace. Which, when you have the wicked in rulership, it says what? The people mourn. And eventually the mourning turns into frustration. The frustration turns into anger, and the anger turns into violence. That is always would be the result of having the wicked in power, right? Violence. Just as it says in Genesis, right? When the sons of God went to the daughters of men, and then started to learn the ways of the Canaanites or Cain's descendants, you had what happened? What happened, right? Violence and corruption, flooded the earth. See? And that's what you see going on right now again, because the nations have drunken of this devil's wine, right? Therefore, the nations are mad, right? They have lost their own way, and they have been drunken off of the ideologies and the customs, right, and the way of life that America, the Edomites, produced, right, here in Babylon, and it's caused nothing but chaos. You see, and this is why we're at a place where war is brewing up. War is about to break out. So let me play this here.
Let's go ahead and take a look.
So here we go. The third round of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks are being described as positive by a senior U.S. official. But so far, there's still no deal. Tensions have been rising overseas, with new reports revealing President Trump is being briefed on military options. Let's bring in retired four-star general, Fox News contributor, strategic analyst, and chairman of the Institute for Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, how much detail are you going for when it comes to these talks? What should we be focused on? Do you think there's any validity to them?
Well, I think the people who are involved in talks always see them as positive because they continue to talk, and that in itself is positive. But the reality is, when you look clearly at what Iran is and what they represent, you've got to come to the conclusion that they're very unlikely they're going to achieve anything. Why is that? Because Iran does want to recover its nuclear program, no matter what lies and pretense they're putting forward in these talks. Number two, Iran clearly is already recovering its ballistic missile program, and that is one of the drumbeats that's beating here in terms of what damage they could do to Israel and also to the United States. Number three, Iran is already continuing to support the proxies in the region, which means at some point they will be upgunned again with a potential to attack Israel. Those are the things that are truly happening, and we've already have the evidence that Iran is willing to kill as many people as it takes inside their country to put down any idea of a protest or an internal regime change. That is who we're dealing with. And what does that actually present to us then? An historic opportunity, because Iran is vulnerable and weak, weaker than they've ever been in the 46-year history of the regime. Right now, today, that gives us up an opportunity to put in place a comprehensive joint operation with Israel to really set the conditions for a regime change. And look, President Trump is a peace president.
You see how these devils talk? This gives us an opportunity to destroy this sovereign country. But look, president is a peace president. Here it is. He tries to tote, all right, that he stopped all of these wars, which he didn't, right? But at the same time, he is about to bring in the war that ends all wars. All right. I always, reference what he said to Joe Rogan, that, there are prophets that say the world will end in the Middle East. You know that, right? He said that back in October of 2024, before he was president, right? A month before the election. And if he knows that, because he said it, why in the hell would he be amassing the largest military buildup in the Middle East, okay, ever? I believe it said it's the largest air force ever, and the largest military buildup since 2001, which that was all for what reason, purposely done. But see, now you're not going against some, Iraqi sand niggas with AKs, right? You're going against a actual government, an actual military that has a standing army, right? They were going against some, militia groups over there. But this is the hypocrisy, right, and the pride of this devil for them to say, oh, we have this opportunity, just like how they did with Venezuela, right, to basically take over. Trump just said it today, or we could take over Cuba, right, a friendly takeover of Cuba, right? They spoke about going over in Mexico and taking Mexico over. He's spoken plenty of times about taking over Canada, making Canada the 51st state, right? He said that they want to take over Greenland. So he says one thing, right? But what is his actions are showing? It's showing that the Lord has him in a mindset that is ultimately going to lead this world into a world war. And what are all these nations going to realize? Which they already do, that America and the 48ers are the problem. Okay?
There is no doubt about it, given what he's done over 13 months on resolving conflicts that were too challenging for others to resolve, and particularly the United Nations, which doesn't show up at all when it comes to peace. But here's the difference. This president is willing to use force to achieve a peaceful outcome. And I believe that is the path we are on right now.
Do you believe
that would be a combined... Go ahead.
Do you believe there are some people within the administration that don't want to take the risk, and they say, well, there's a chance of casualties, there's a chance of Iraq War II type of outcome, and we shouldn't take the risk? Or do you think that there's some of that friction within the Trump administration?
Yeah, certainly, and there usually is in any administration. There's always folks who are going to look at it and just focus on the negative, adverse consequences.
Hey, and you have, talks about that, right? That there have been, people within his administration. I think they were saying that even the head of the, they call him Raising Cane, the commander, right, of the military, that was basically saying that he doesn't think that they can win a war against Iran. All right. So the fact that you have certain people that's around Trump that are not on board with what's going on, it showcases how his house is divided. See, they're not in unison when it comes to what should be done. And that is a bad sign when you're about to actually go into war with the country when everybody is not on the same page.
and then that leads them to what? To do nothing. To do nothing here and to give Iran another 10 years to impose their will on the region and continue to destabilize it. We've been with these guys almost 50 years now. Do we really want to do that when the vulnerability and weakness is right in front of us? The historic opportunity to stabilize this Middle East once and for all, to have the Abraham Accords kick in, and we already know those countries would be willing to do that if we get Iran off the board here. That is a huge opportunity. To do nothing is to continue this. Makes no sense. So, yes, there always will people who are going to advocate, well, there'll be casualties. 2, the operation is going to be complicated. 3, there's not a clear definition in terms of an end state. And listen, when you conduct even an operation with a ground force to conduct decisive operations to change the regime, as we did in Panama in '89, Haiti in '94, Afghanistan in 1, and Iraq in 3, there's always ambiguity in terms of what follows after that.
Yeah, you see? And that was just within the last, 30 years, 40 years that he just named. But that goes to show you that this place, Babylon, is actually, as the scriptures called it, right? The hammer of the earth. That they just go into these sovereign countries and, take it, do a quote unquote regime change. And when you look at the difference, it's always worse, right? It's not like these countries gotten better after America went in there and quote unquote, use their force to do a regime change. See?
And you can't let that distort what the opportunity is in front of you here.
General,
and that's the reality of it. And I think that's the path I think we're really likely on here.
General, when we look at the assets, if we can put up that map again, with 2 aircraft carriers, Gerald R. Ford seems to be now in place. Do you believe that we have enough in the region to be successful, especially if you combine with the Israelis? Do you believe our forces are properly protected?
Look at all these ships over there, man. Look, and we've spoke about it, done videos on it about how the Lord said, I'll pull it up again. that he was going to bring these nations over to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Joel chapter 9 goes straight to the point, verse 12. Let the heathen be awakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahweh Shaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. See, going back to what this guy said, the coming weeks will shape the coming decades in the Middle East. And it's not going to shape it for your benefit, man. All right. All of these things are being done for the controversy of the true children of the Most High. Right. This is why this is a proclamation unto the Gentiles to prepare war. All right. And as we are seeing, this is a ripe time for this harvest, for this to happen. It says, come get you down, for the press is full, the flats overflow, for their wickedness is great. All right. And it's no coincidence that this is all happening potentially on the same weekend where there's supposed to be a blood moon. All right. There's on March 3rd. Right. And I typed in what makes this blood moon significant. It says the significance of the March 3rd, 2026 blood moon lies in its rarity, in its status as a major astronomical last for several years. See, did not the scripture says also in Joel, the 2nd chapter, that there will be signs in the heavens? Joel 2 verse 28. Let's actually go to the point. The day of the Lord, verse 30. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. And the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. See, as these times get worse and worse and more hectic and crazy and more devastation happening, leading up to the terrible day of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, only ones that's going to be delivered is those that are calling upon the name of the Lord. Those are the ones that are going to be delivered. And this is why at the forefront of our ministry, our gospel is what? The acknowledging and the exalting of the name of our God, Yahweh, through his son, our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai. That is how you're going to be delivered in these times, man. And anybody, any other teacher, right, that is not teaching you to call upon the name of your God, hey, let them be a curse, man. Let them be a curse, because they're literally keeping you, shutting the doors of the kingdom of heaven from you. Because when this thing pops off, as Ezra said, who shall deliver me in those days? Woe is me, who shall deliver me in those days? Well, right here it tells you who calls upon the name of the Lord in sincerity and in truth. Right? It says, for in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, the people before it's a place, as the Lord has said, in the remnant whom the Lord shall call, which is only the elect, the remnant of Jacob, you see, that are going to call and trust in the name of the Lord. And that name will be a strong tower in this day. But as it says in the 31st verse, what? The moon being turned into blood. So, you know, they were speaking about doing this strike all the way back in January. But, you know, it kept getting pushed back because it's all on really ultimately up into the Lord's time and the Lord's, appointed time that he does it. But it's, in no coincidence that it potentially may happen, right? They say in either this weekend or within the next weekend. So within the next 7 days, this strike can happen, which is why you have all of these nations now. China, America told its people, right? I forgot there was another country. There's a lot of different countries, but particularly today, China and America basically told its people to leave out of the region. All right, leave out of Israel and leave out of Iran. You see, because you have this taking place, that it's imminent that the strike is about to happen. So it says the final opportunity for years. This is the only total lunar eclipse of 2026, and the final one visible from North America until December 31st, 2028. And Lord willing, we out of here before that. It says following that, the next worldwide total solar eclipse, won't occur until 2029. The warm blood moon. This eclipse coincides with the worm moon, the traditional name for the March full moon that signals the start of spring. And we know that these devils like to, do things on certain astrological time periods and events, right? March representing, and for them, right, the god of war, Mars. See? And then on top of that, there's this astronomical event happening, which we're not dismayed at, right? We're not dismayed at the signs of the heaven, but we see them and we understand them. But these devils, they actually look at these things as being time periods to do certain things so that they could try to get certain energy, right? Get certain energy to get fortune on their side. Isaiah 47, verse 13, thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. So they got these different counsels. I wonder, how should we do it? When should we do it? Right? How should it be a limited strike? Should it be all out strike? Should we take down the Ayatollah, or should we just, try to scare them? Oh, they're wearied. It says, let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Right? So they got their left-handed priesthood that they consort, right? The Chaldeans, and they probably are looking at it like, oh, we do it during this time, then, we could try to summons, the demons, right? Who are their gods, to give them, the benefit and give them fortune and let them, win and let their enterprise work. And it's not going to, right? That's why the Lord said it. Stand now in thy enchantments, right? Stand now in thy enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be, thou shalt be able to profit. If so be, thou mayest prevail. So they're doing this thinking, right? And like I said, if it happens within the next week, then best believe it is definitely was because they were trying to line it up with this, right? As we're reading, because these devils are witches, right? They are sorcerers and they use enchantments. Clearly, the whole shit with the Epstein files, right? And what they've been, showcasing, right? The Bohemian Grove that's been known for years shows you that they're into satanic rituals. So how much more when it comes to something major like going to war, right? And on top of that, Trump saying that the prophets, right, say that the world is going to end in the Middle East. Who is he talking about? What prophets? Ain't no Israeli prophet saying that, right? There's no Allah prophet saying that. Those are the prophets of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, the men of the Lord. That is who he's talking about. And they're trying to upset the prophecy. They're trying to circumvent it. But all you're doing is falling right into the trap, because who can resist the Lord's will?
Well, I believe what our military commanders believe, and I know what they believe, and I know what the Israelis believe. They believe it conduct a military operation to be highly successful based on the resources they have. It doesn't mean that we're casualty free. I mean, Iran, you always recognize an adversary here has opportunities. They got to vote here. But we can conduct a very comprehensive campaign with the Israelis to deal with what? Civilian and military leadership, the entire infrastructure that props this regime up and sustains it, ballistic missiles, to be sure, drones that are in storage sites, right, and any attempt for Iran to recover their nuclear operation, and many other things as well. In a general sense,
Gotcha.
that is an indicator of what a comprehensive campaign would actually look like. And the resources in the region, two purposes. One, to help defend U.S. bases in the region and the Israeli bases,
right,
as well as the Israeli people. And two, to conduct a very comprehensive offensive campaign, which would reduce dramatically Iran's capability to retaliate.
General, thanks so much. I hope the president chooses to go at it. We've been looking at these headlines for 47 years, and we have an opportunity to end it, and this president likes to make history. General Jack Keane, always appreciate your insight. I know the president does, too.
There you have it, you guys. Man, and let me know your...
Yeah. Lord, he already just said this president likes to make history. And he gonna make history, all right, man. This is why we, hope and believe that this is that cruel Lord. Hey, Trump said it himself. He's the chosen one, right? See, he think he's being chosen by the elites of this world, but really, who's pulling their strings, right? It's the Heavenly Father, man. He is the one that's setting this whole thing up, and he has put you in a position, as it says in Jeremiah, that are taken, right, and thou are not aware. You're not aware. So you think you're about to make a name for yourself and be the guy that makes America great and solidifies its dominance and its on the earth. And no, what's really about to happen is you're going to be known as the guy that brought forth Armageddon, brought forth the destruction of Babylon. The last Trump. Jeremiah chapter 50. Oh, Salaki is 50. Jeremiah chapter 50, verse, where is it at? Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 22 says, "And a sound of battle is in thy land and of great destruction." Because this is not going to be a fight that is just fought abroad. Because once again, according to what is written, and that is what stands, America, Persia, right, is going to receive help from who? Gog, right, which are the Russians, being a defense unto them. And these Babylonians know if America gets involved in a armed conflict against Russia, it's over. All right, because Russia also got China, which also has North Korea, and then also you're going to have certain allies of America that's going to turn against it, and it's going to turn into what? A great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut in sunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? Because that's something that people can't see, right? You just heard the guy talk about, I hope America does it. I hope Trump does this. They speak boastfully about war like as if they're just, impenetrable, right? They in their mind, they think they are God. Who can stop us? Who can defeat us? It says, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. Right? Let's get that in NLT. And this is what we are proclaiming, man. There's a snare laid for you, a trap, and you don't even see it. It says, listen, Babylon, I have set a trap for you. You are caught, for you have fought against the Lord. All right? And this is why, although these talks, right, and even the Omanian foreign minister, which is the mediator, right, he just went on the Face of the Nation, CBS, and actually said that a deal is in reach because Iran is actually willing to, stop, right, and lower their enrichment, nuclear enrichment. They're still Trump administration. They're still talking as if it's impossible for a deal to happen. Well, if the whole thing was about the nuclear enrichment and the individual that is the responsible for mediation is saying that, the Iranians are willing to not enrich. Why are you, going to war, because, like I said before, it's not. They keep moving the goalposts back because it's not really about nuclear enrichment. All right, let's listen.
And joining me now is the foreign minister of Oman,
And this just came out, like I said,
who is the
today.
mediator negotiating a nuclear deal between the United States and Iran. Welcome to Face the Nation.
Thank you.
So President Trump said Friday he's not happy with the way talks are going and not happy that they're not willing to give us what we have to have. From your point of view, is diplomacy failing?
I am confident, and in my assessment of the way the talks are going, I think there is really, I can see that the peace deal is within our reach.
A peace deal?
Yes, it is within our reach if we just allow diplomacy the space it needs to get there. Because I don't think any alternative to diplomacy is going to solve this problem.
When you say space, does that mean you are asking for more time to continue negotiations?
I'm asking to continue this process because we have already achieved quite a substantial progress in the direction of a deal. And the heart of this deal is very important, and I think we have captured that heart.
When you say the heart of the deal, Iran has said this has to be nuclear only. What have you actually agreed upon? Can you give us any sense of why there should be more time?
Because if the ultimate objective is to ensure forever that Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb, I think we have cracked that problem through these negotiations by agreeing a very important breakthrough that has never been achieved any time before. And I think if we can capture that and build on it, I think a deal is within our reach.
What has Iran agreed to you that they have never done before? Can you give us any sense?
The single most important achievement, I believe, is the agreement that Iran will never, ever have a nuclear material that will create a bomb. This is, I think, a big achievement. This is something that is not in the old deal that was negotiated during President Obama's time. This is something completely new. It really makes the enrichment argument less relevant because now we are talking about zero stockpiling. And that is very, very important because if you cannot stockpile material that is enriched, then there is no way you can actually create a bomb, whether you enrich or don't enrich. And I think this is really something that has been missed a lot by the media, and I want to clarify that from the standpoint of a mediator.
So explain that. So the enriched material.
So as he just basically said, is that Iran agreed not to enrich, and they agreed that they will never have a bomb. Is not what Trump has been saying, that they haven't been saying those 7 words, right? As it says over here, not happy with the talk. Well, why are you not happy with the talks if the actual mediator is saying that Iran said they will never have a bomb? They've said exactly what you and agreed to, exactly what you are saying that you want. And, when I was watching this, it dawned on me, basically, this is the fact that he came out and, said this on an interview in American media is not a good look for what Trump and the administration is trying to do, because he is the guy that is basically talking to both sides, and he is saying that Iran is willing to make a deal. So why are you still trying to, go to war? Why are you still, moving toward doing strikes upon them, which is only going to cause, as it says here in the book of 2nd Esdras 15 verse 28, behold, an horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east, right? That's where all this is going down over there in the east, where the nations of Arabia, Salaki, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Right? Because even when the 48ers strike Qatar last year, okay, that wasn't something that was forgotten. What happened? Those Arabian nations, they made a pact, right? They basically made a pact and said that, if any one of us gets struck again, then, we all got to come together and fight, right? Against who? Against the 48ers, the people that are perpetrating, right? The ones that are really causing all of these problems over there. Because as Mike Huckabee said, that it's their right to have the all of those countries, right? The greater 48er project, right? But right here is the point. Verse 30, it says, also the Carmanians, which are the Iranians, Persians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as wild boars of the wood. And this would could cause them to be, right, raging in wrath. The fact that they are trying to, come to a peace deal, and they are actually, acquiescing to what Trump is saying that they want, but then they come back still with their hypocrisy and still bomb them and say, because they were trying to get a nuclear bomb. Well, the guy is saying the complete opposite.
That things that could be used as nuclear fuel for a bomb. You're saying Iran would not keep on their own soil?
They would give it up.
They would give it up?
They will not be able to actually accumulate that material that will enable them to create a bomb. There's no accumulation. So there will be zero accumulation, zero stockpiling, and full verification. That is also equally important achievement, I think.
Hey, this is bad publicity for them, man. For America, this is looking real bad.
Which is the agency in charge of this fight.
The UN nuclear watchdog. So you're saying all enriched material would be shipped someplace else, not Russia, but...
No, the current stockpiles that are...
Significant, if Iran agreed to that.
It is very significant, and I think we have agreement on that, in my view.
In your view?
Yes.
Because today, CBS confirmed a confidential report from the IAEA says inspectors report seeing Iran conducting regular activity at bombed uranium enrichment sites. But Iran has refused to tell us what has happened to their stockpile. They have refused to allow UN inspectors in to look at it. Are you telling me that inspectors would be given access to these sites, like at Isfahan?
If there is a deal, an agreed deal, there will be full access.
Iran has offered that?
Yes.
So who would these inspectors be? It would be UN?
Yeah. Let me see.
IAEA?
This is another point.
Assured by the IAEA that there are no enrichment activities going on at the moment.
The last time that we saw a diplomatic deal, there were years of talks. There were
whether it's related to the stockpiling and the stockpiles issues, whether it's related to the verification, I think within 3 months that will be all in place.
And Iran wants the United States to lift sanctions. If the United States does that, that helps the regime, a regime with a terrible human rights record, stay in power.
I think other areas of concern are not really, we have not been mandated to discuss this. And so I think I would rather focus on this because that is the most critical.
Another point where he mentions what Trump been saying.
You didn't get to meet with President Trump.
Yeah, I think it's right.
He may see this interview. Do I understand that your main ask is give me more time because you think you can close this and prevent Iran from ever getting a nuclear weapon?
I think both sides of the equation, the American negotiators and the Iranians, are very, very serious to reach a deal, and they think they can reach a deal, in my assessment. And knowing and assessing the various components of this deal, and what I have already explained to you, the great progress that we have made, the substantial progress that we have made, which is far, far more than any time before. We just need that bit of extra time to close the deal. And if I was President Trump, my only advice is just to give those negotiators enough room and enough space to really close these remaining areas that we need to discuss and agree upon.
And he don't got time. That's the thing, right? Revelation 12. It says he's going to come down with great wrath because he knows that he has but a short time. So this is why they keep changing up the story. They keep moving, right, the goalposts. They keep saying one thing and then another because they ultimately, at the behest of the 48ers, right, they have to go to war, right? Remember, Iran was one of the 7 countries that top secret, the document showed that needed to be taken over, right? Because I think Iran doesn't have a Rothschild central bank system over there. See, so he's saying that just give me some more time, but Trump is telling them if you listen to what Trump is saying, is like, nah, I'm not happy. I'm running out of patience. I'm ready to go to other plans.
And if Israel carries out a strike, or if the U.S. carries out even a limited strike on the ballistic missiles, do you think that you could still get a nuclear deal done?
Well, diplomacy can reach a deal. I don't think any other acts can solve this problem, really. I don't think it will only complicate resolving this problem and delay it.
Mr. Foreign Minister.
Yep. So, hey, we want to see what happens with that. We got this
Our
one here.
soldiers are going to be in Israel right now as we speak, in order to defend the Israelis. Do the Israelis pay for our military? Are they the ones who are shelling out $1 trillion a year for our military? No, they're not. We pay for our military. Why are our soldiers based in Israel? Why do we have F-22 Raptors in Israel in order to protect Israel? In a laughable attempt to drum up support for the U.S. carrying out a war against Iran on behalf of Israel, senior Trump advisors are allegedly hoping that Israel launches an attack on Iran first, which would then trigger retaliation from Iran against Israel, and then it would drag the United States into war. Instead of listening to the American people, the Trump administration would like to manipulate the American people.
You see that right there, right? But yeah, I seen that. I seen the article. Basically, they were saying that they may have the 48ers attack first, so that Iran can attack, and it's all manipulation and deception. Okay, but it all goes according to prophecy as well, because like I said earlier, the reason why America's over there, partly it's the oil, and then the main part is because of the 1948ers. You see, and a lot of these people that used to be even MAGA, Trump supporters, they are turning their back on him because they're seeing that he's just being puppeteered, right, by Netanyahu, right? And he's not really for America first. And nobody in his administration is for America first. It's all about, the small hats. And that is actually, causing a rift, causing, a hatred, of these Babylonian Edomites to Amalek. So the curses are even coming upon them in their own kingdom. And this is just only going to drag out more and more and more into it gets to a point where America is collapsed. It's in a war, right? It's war torn. It's, the financial system is all disrupted because of the Strait of Hormuz. The gas prices is all time high, electricity, all these things. And everybody's going to know it's because of what the government is doing on behalf of the 48ers. So when shit hits the fan, and then when the Lord comes back, and then these devils go into captivity, all that's going to be in their memory. Well, the Babylonians, they're going to be destroyed, right? But all these other Americans everywhere else, other Edomites everywhere else in the world, they're going to see and they're going to know, hey, our world ended because of you Amalekites, man. You ruined us. And they're going to be the most hated
people. So the calculus is a political one. The calculus is a political one, that more Americans would stomach a war with Iran if the United States or an ally were attacked first. But again, under this dumb plan, Iran wouldn't have attacked the United States or Israel first. Israel would attack Iran first, and then that would, of course, spark a retaliation, which is normal. What would we do if we were attacked on our land? We would respond, right?
Yep. So, hey, what's the Mossad's motto? Through deception, we make war. So you could have a false flag event, right? Iran, Israel can have something happen and make it seem as though Iran did it. And then that gives them they just did it last year in June, right? In the midst of talks, the 48ers just struck Iran for no reason, and then that's when that 12-day war popped off. And so it's the same playbook, man. But at the end of the day, it's all leading up into one path. It's all going down one road, which is the end of Esau's world. All right, so I'm going to close it out with that. Lord willing, this was edifying. Giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Shalom.